We're going to begin the event.
The International Association of Coaching. Home of the Coaching Masteries.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 9th edition of Quo Vadis Coaching. Thank you for being here and from anywhere in the world that you're connecting from. Esteemed colleagues, for us, it is a pleasure and an honor
darles la bienvenida a esta edición del Quo Vadis Coaching
to
2024.
welcome you to this Quo Vadis Coaching 2024 edition.
Este año hemos titulado Pilares de Transformación.
This year we have titled Pillars of Transformation,
haciendo referencia a las maestrías de coaching como un eje central,
making reference to the masteries of coaching as a central axis of the coaching that we provide, while using them as a conceptual framework and a practical framework in our profession.
Este evento es un testimonio del compromiso inquebrantable de la IAC hacia la excelencia en
This
el
event
coaching.
is a testimony of the unrelenting commitment of IAC towards the excellence of coaching, and I want to express the collective effort of all the team of volunteers. And this can be based on 3 words: love, commitment, and mystique. Love to our profession and organization, love that we believe that we can always be better, and that excellence is the search for each day. Commitment is the word we use when we accept the commitment to become volunteers with the idea of contributing, and this becomes the base of an unrelenting commitment. Mystique, that allows each of the members of the IAC team to have gone that extra mile, beyond work hours, beyond holidays, beyond logistics and resources, etc. Today, Quo Vadis Coaching is a reality. So I don't want to start this event without giving thanks to everyone that has participated in making this event a reality. From the speakers that have gladly accepted our invitation, members of the executive committee, and members of the board of governance, global committee leaders, remote assistants, technical support team, thank you, all of you. Quo Vadis Coaching 2024 Pillars of Transformation will be dedicated to the fundamental element of providing value of IAC, which are the masteries of coaching. First off, it's a homage to men and women that materialized those masteries from the conception of the idea to what they are today. And at the same time, we dream that this means for everyone in our ecosystem an increase of the consciousness of the impact of the masteries of coaching in clients, students, and in the coach that's providing the coaching. What meaning do we give to the coaching that we offer through the reference framework of the masteries? How do we do our clients transform thanks to them? How have they transformed each of us? And how do we continue discovering us and learning thanks to them. We have 3 wonderful days ahead of us. Today, we will start with the heart of the masteries, a story to be told, an exhaustive research performed by our colleague Catherine Miller, who for over 4 years has interviewed coaches that have or were an integral part of elaborating and developing our masteries. Her findings will offer us a unique vision over which the spirit that inspired these coaches to create them was designed. Tomorrow, we will present the IAC Coaching Masteries, a perspective from teaching and transformation. We'll have a panel of very relevant coaches that direct schools accredited by IAC throughout the world. And this dialogue will be essential to understand the impact from the perspective of coaching and the client in regards to teaching. On Wednesday, we will present Masteries of IAC Coaching and the path towards certification. We'll get to know in detail the process that our coaches should follow to obtain the certifications of certified and coach and master coach. This path of growth and development for all of those who decide to commit with them. We'll listen from people that have recently achieved these levels with great success. These inspiring testimonies will allow us to understand the richness that they have found while going through that path and how their experience have molded their practice. And finally, on Thursday, we'll celebrate our annual assembly, a space that's exclusive for our active members where they can reflect about our achievements and also plan our future together. Now, without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce you Mr. CG, leader of the Singapore chapter, and Ms. Catherine Miller, Secretary of the Executive Committee of IAC, and they will be delivering our presentations today, The Heart of the Masteries, a story to be told. Go ahead, Catherine and CJ, and welcome everyone to Quo Vadis Coaching 2024.
All right. Thank you. Gracias, Gillian. Hi, everybody. Good evening or good morning, depending on where you are right now. Thank you all for joining Quo Vadis Coaching. And I'm really honored and it's really my pleasure to be featured in the inaugural session, the first session for these Quo Vadis events. And for today, for this particular series, one of the key things that kept me really curious is that how did we get our masteries? How did we end up, or how did the 9 masteries come about? It's always something that I thought they were great, but at the back of my mind, it's something that I would like to find out more. And also because throughout, if you have been through IAC certification process, you might have felt that sometimes the notes given to explain the masteries are a bit, should I say, brief and a bit short. So if there are anyone that can help us to gain further insights, either through personal experience or better still, the experiences and the original stories from the people who created or map up the masteries, that will help us a lot. So today, we are really honored to invite Catherine Miller, who is a member in Canada, one of the founding IAC members, joined in October 2003. She's IAC MC Master Coach. She's currently a member of the Board of Governors since January 2022, and is the Executive Secretary for IAC since January 2023. So, good day, good morning, Catherine. How are you? Pleased to have you on board.
Hi, CJ, and hi to everyone who's here with us today. Thank you for the introduction and the wonderful opening, Gillian, for our 4-day Quo Vadis event. There's, as you say, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to make this possible. And so I too add my gratitude to everyone who's been involved in this. And maybe this is a day of gratitude, because I think that's going to be a bit of the theme for me anyway, in sharing what I've learned through the research on how the Coaching Masteries came to be. Because this is an exciting day, because this is the very first time any of the story from the research is going to be shared. So my intent is that everyone will be able to pull up your chair and sit back and relax. And as you listen, my intent and my hope is that you'll take away some insights, some interesting bits of information, and some nuggets that are going to add some color and texture to your relationship, to your connection and understanding of the Coaching Masteries. Maybe bring them a bit more to life for you as you deepen your understanding with them. So I don't know if any of you are like me. I tend to take notes of these sort of things, but I encourage you just to sit back and relax and not take notes today, because what I'm sharing today and much more, in much more detail, more stories, more insights, are going to be coming your way to our members into your email inbox with the launch of our newsletter called Voice Bites. Voice Bites is going to be 3-minute reads on 3 areas of IAC. It's going to be education, information, and inspiration. And in the information section is where we'll be loading a lot of 3-minute bites of information about the background of the Coaching Masteries, tips from past articles of certifiers in the past about the different masteries. So there's going to be a lot of helpful bits and bites for you to digest coming your way. So that's going to be launched by the end of November, and will be coming out every couple of months or so.
Wow, that's great. One of the key things that, one of my personal intention in joining IAC, besides certification, is to be a better coach. The reason that I joined in the Triads practice, the reason I joined in the China group practices, the reason I set up my own regional mastermind to practice coaching as well. One key thing is to be a better coach, and that's why I'm still a member. And in this age of TLDR, which stands for too long, didn't read, anything that is bite-sized, 3 minutes, let me know what I should do when the moment comes, is greatly appreciated. And just for the sake of Quo Vadis and for the sake of promoting IAC, in case you're not a member, because this event is open to anyone who wants to join. So in case you're not a member, membership is only 169 USD a year only, all in, all support, and all the 3 minutes bite-sized information. Okay, anyway, enough of the advertisement. Let's get back to the program. So Catherine, we're talking about the coaching masteries and the origins of it all, and how did it all happen. And I understand that you personally took up research about the coaching masteries in the spring of 2021. So what prompted you to research and find out about what's behind the coaching masteries?
Well, I think similar to what you were starting to say as well, CJ, curiosity, which is always good in coaching. And you never know in life or in coaching where curiosity is going to take you. So yeah, back in early 2021, I had and still do have a regular practice of revisiting those pages, those charts on each coaching mastery, just to refresh my memory, to go a little deeper with them. I always come away with some new insight or understanding. But there was this one day 4 years ago that I sort of took a step back, and I thought, I just sort of had a greater appreciation for the depth and wisdom and effectiveness of these coaching masteries. And I began to think, well, where did they come from? How were they developed? So I asked the certification committee, and they said, well, we'd like to know too. There is no record. We know we have a list of the 32 coaches involved in creating it. We have the end results, the coaching masteries and the ebook, but we have no documentation, no knowledge of how they actually came to be. So they asked me if I would like to lead the research project, and I said, sure, I'd love to. And that's how it all began.
So how did you go about to start it all?
Well, so as I was saying, there was no record, but we did have that list of the 32 coaches. We had their names, we had the country they were from, and we had their contact information. But at this point, that contact information was 17 years old. So, so what I did is, with the help in the first few months with another volunteer, we took that list of 32 and divided it between us, and we started trying to follow up on the contact information. And we knew personally a few of them, so that helped. So we sort of started off strong, but then we started to not be able to get any other responses. So it became a bit of a detective job, which was actually kind of fun in a challenging way, to do a bit of social media detecting and connecting through other people. And that took quite a while. And every time we got someone connected, it was like such a reward. So by 2023, we had reached 14 of those 32 original coaches. And I'll say of every single one of them, they were thrilled that we had reached them. And they all said, it's been 17 years. I have to try and scratch my memory here. But what everyone did recall and then shared was what a significant experience it was for them. That they remembered clearly. And better than me trying to, I'm going to share what one of them said, because they say it better than I can. And I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to read this to yourselves. We'll just give you some silence to do that. And you'll see what stands out while our interpreters read it in Spanish and Chinese.
Yeah, interpreters, if you can help to read it in translate and read it in Chinese and Spanish respectively, thank you.
So as you can see, it was truly a joyful process. It was all this positive energy and experience and motivation that just really sparked the whole project and carried it through the whole way through to the end. So while that part they remembered really well, recalling the actual process was, as I was mentioning, a little bit more difficult. So as we spoke in the interviews, bits and pieces of information started to come to light, but it was kind of like a puzzle, with certain pieces of the puzzle being illuminated, but not in any order, and not enough to actually complete the picture. Because we were working on a puzzle that we didn't actually have a full picture for. We didn't really know what the end result was going to be. And come to think of it, actually, I think that's really what the process was for those coaches too. They were picking up pieces and trying to put it together and create a puzzle picture as well. But I'd hear a bit of information from this person and a bit of something else from this person. And sometimes the information would agree and reinforce. Sometimes there were slight differences. But as the pieces did come together, it started to show me where there were gaps and where I had questions still to be answered. So I actually went back to 2 or 3 of the coaches several times with more questions and, exploring more possibilities of, what do you remember? But then just last year, a gold mine came my way, but it came to all of us. Because through a friend, I was able to contact one more of the coaches. And after our conversation, she looked into one of her old computers and she found about 180 emails from the first phase of the development of the Coaching Masteries. And that first phase, you got to remember, this is back in 2004. There was no Zoom. All they had was teleconference calls, phone calls, like internationally, and emails. So they would meet weekly on a teleconference call. But in between was where a lot of the work was done through these emails. So between the information from the interviews, newsletter articles, and board meeting minutes that I found in the IAC archives, and all these emails, I've been able to start to verify all the details. And that's what has gone into what we have documented today. So that's how the research began. But it's continuing because I still have more emails to go through. But we now do have a pretty good picture of how the masters were developed, refined, and evaluated.
Wow. I mean, this story is so amazing. We have 17 and later on expanded to 32 different coaches and experienced coaches volunteering. They're not paid in whatever way. And not only are they not paid, they didn't even seek any credit to participate in the shaping of a kind of a structure so that we can certify who are better coaches, who are qualified coaches, and who else needs to work on various areas. They work together in their own volition without modern technology like Zoom or even WhatsApp to create something that benefits the rest of us. I mean, I got to say, they really, really love coaching. And it's the same for a lot of us here. I mean, a lot of us are volunteering in whatever shape or form. One of the key things is we really love coaching. That's why we are here. Right. So with all that involved, Catherine, with all the information that you had, what stood up? What stood out for you the most?
The most? There's so much that stands out for me. But I would like to pick up on what you were just saying. It was definitely one of the I've actually maybe a few things I'll share, but that generosity of spirit. And it was truly exemplified by that mutual agreement right off the bat when they all said, we're in this, heart and soul for IAC and for the coaching world. We will not take any personal or professional recognition or gain from it. And which is part of the reason I think is why we never learned the story, because they honored that. They went in and they were just really focused on their intention. And that was to develop a structure for masterful coaching, that spoke to coaches around the globe. And that would be the basis for the IAC certification. So yeah, definitely that generosity of spirit and that passion for the vision and purpose of IAC. So that was, I think, that has really stood out. It's worth repeating, I think, was what a joyful experience it was for everybody. How much fun they actually had. It was intense, and they were just totally immersed in it. So it was so engaging and so collaborative. So I think the other thing that I would reinforce, or what stands out for me, was just the collaboration, the extensive thought, the openness of thought, the focus of thought, and the rigor of the whole process. And, actually, CJ, when I think of all those qualities, actually, I see those alive and well in the Coaching Masteries today. I think they transferred into the Coaching Masteries, and they're alive and well in them today.
Wow. So who are these coaches who help us to transfer the masteries in the first place so that we can apply it in not just in coaching, but in also in our daily lives?
Yeah, who were they and where did they come from? Yeah, it's an interesting question. We have a list of these 32 people. So it started off, because of the reason IAC was started was to be an independent coaching body in the coaching world. And in the first year of IAC being open in 2003, there's a lot of operational stuff, to get it up and running. And by 2004, they started to gather a nucleus of individuals who are already volunteering in IAC to start to form the group to develop the coach. We're calling them the Coaching Masteries. They did not have that name at that point. Ways to coach was one of the terms, or the coaching standards was the other term that they used back then. So there was the 2004 president, several members from the board of governors, and the certification committee. They were the nucleus that started it. They were the catalyst. Many of these coaches had worked with Thomas Leonard developing the 15 proficiencies and all kinds of other coaching material. They reached out to people in other coaches in their networks who reached out to more coaches. They met coaches at international coaching conferences, and overall, they brought people from all over the world. So that first phase, by January 1st, 2005, when they were ready to start working, they had 17 coaches from diverse areas around the world, who also brought not only their training and experience in coaching, and most of them were at a masterful level, they brought their diverse professional backgrounds from their careers from beforehand too. So that's who they were. Actually, I've got a list here of some of the countries they came from. So they came from China, Nicaragua, Australia, South Africa, Korea, Mexico, France, Israel, Hong Kong, Canada, and the United States. So it was pretty global representation, and that was intentional.
Wow. So how did they go about? I mean, they came from a lot of diverse backgrounds, and I'm just surprised and pleasantly surprised that they had joy developing the masteries rather than fighting among one another, trying to prove who's right and who's wrong. So how was the process like? How did they go about developing the coaching masteries?
Yeah, so I think that is something that was really worth noting, was that there wasn't it was a joyful thing. It was an open-minded thing, our process. And what they wanted was they were together in their intention. They were, and everything that they decided was on a consensus basis. Lots of discussion, always a consensus to move forward. And I think maybe I'll start off with clarifying a couple of things. So, what they did the first time when they were meeting in January of 2005, they said, well, we come from different coaching backgrounds and training, and we come from different parts of the world, different cultures. So maybe we should start with seeing if we all are on the same page as to what coaching is all about. So, so they put that question to themselves and had came back. Everybody expressed what coaching was to themselves, and they came up with pretty much being on the same page. That basically the mutual concept was, and I'm going to just read it to be accurate, a transformational process with essential components of trust and creating an open space for the client to be able to process thoughts, feelings, and realizations. So they then knew they were on the same page, that they could start to go forward with working on the coaching masteries. So then they wanted to get clear on what was their intent. And actually, I can share this from on a slide too. This also was from another one of the coaches during one of our some of the research that I was able to dig up on that was in published. So as you can see, they wanted it to be a universal, global application that spoke to coaches and people all around the world. They wanted to develop excellent standards to demonstrate masterful coaching. They wanted the focus to be, or a part of the focus to be on the clients. What were they getting from the coaching? They wanted it to relate to the code of ethics, to reflect the code of ethics, and actually the values of the IAC. And it would be used as the basis for IAC's independent coach certification. So, so that's where they first started.
Wow.
Once they had that clear, which I think is, again, mirrors a coaching session, of getting clearer about intention and meaning of things. So then they could start to get into the really fun part, which is starting to identify the qualities or the essential aspects that they thought made for masterful coaching. So I can start. So they did the first part that I've just mentioned in 1 month. So by February 1st, 2005, they were ready for their first assignment. All 17 were asked to make a list of 10 items, keeping it as simple, like simple words or simple phrases that describe for them the essence of masterful coaching. So you can imagine there's at least 170 items coming into the pool of to be considered. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that the direction that they came from. They had expert experience, training. They could reflect on all their experiences. What they chose to reflect on especially was their experience of being coached by a masterful coach. Because being coaches and reflecting on their experience of being coached, they could see what was really working and what was really important and beneficial. So yeah, the essence words started to come into the one person in particular who was the chair of the phase one. And she wrote, there was reams and reams and pages of notes. And so I'll go to this next one. So she started working on sorting them all out, and they would all meet on teleconference calls, and again back and forth with emails as to how to start looking for themes, looking for commonalities, and universal truths, basically. And I'm sharing these. This is just a handful of the first that started to come through on the emails. But I thought you'd be interested in seeing these, because right off the bat, we can already see the essence of some of the coaching masteries starting to take form. So acknowledging feelings, see beyond the situation, purposeful listening, an open mind. And actually, an open mind in conjunction with non-judgment were the two items that came up the most in everyone's top 10 list. And a coach working with a client to create their best environments to be self-sustaining. So as the 170 items came in and they continued to work through them with lengthy discussions and emails, the group chose through consensus what reflected the best qualities and components of coaching standards. And they honed it down based on everyone's input to where they had about 70, so 70 basic qualities that they then each took away and tried to cluster. And here's an email, again, from one of the creators, the chair actually. It describes some of the process. I thought it'd be fun for everyone to see. So with that fabulous graph that had been developed, sprawled across this person's dining room table with her colored markers in hand, she attempted to start clustering all the top 10 lists, looking for parallel ideas and repeated references. And then she made a stab at creating 6 clusters, 6 themes. But then she asked everyone else to do the same thing, which they all did. And then they began working them down further. So 3 qualities, actually, I think it was of interest, kept reappearing in each of the clusters. And those were trust, curiosity, and silence. And while they thought, well, we could make these into separate standards, really, they take place in every single one of these clusters. Why don't we just weave them in, make sure that they are in every single one of these, what's going to be the standards or the coaching masteries. So that's why we see them actually today, because they show up differently in each mastery, but they're still essential in each one. So they brought it down to 5 clusters, which were basically relationship, listening and communication, processing information, coaching intentions, purpose, and perspectives, and structures and support. So, I'm trying to condense some, 2 years actually practically of a process, but the first 4 months were really intense and really productive. And they had got it down to these 5 clusters, and they kept working. They divided themselves into 5 teams then and started honing in on these qualities and developing them into further develop them into what they might mean. And by April, so 4 months later, they had named each cluster. They had developed qualities and descriptions. So that's where the definitions, the effect, and the key elements, it all started to take shape. And they were skilled at putting all these terms and qualities into a framework, which was actually at that point the 1-page grid that we know today. So that got started way back in the first 4 months of the whole development. And so they continued to hone these clusters for about another 2 months. And by June 1st, they were ready to expand the team. And they brought in more coaches from around the globe to bring fresh eyes to what they've been working on. And so that became phase 2. And the phase 2 group did the same sort of process of intensively going through, evaluating, honing in. They did a lot of work on choosing the words. The words were really, really important to make sure that they were meaning the same thing to people around the world. So they would come up with a phrase or a description, and then they would check it with other members around the world. What's this mean to you? Does this have the same interpretation? They spent a lot of time to make them as universal as possible. And so by the end of June, they had a title for each of the standards, let's say we're calling them, and they thought they might go for 10 to 15, and they actually got up to 10 standards, but then brought it down to 9 through their whole process. So getting pretty close to the 9 that we know today. And then it went on to phase 3, and that was the certifiers. And they did the same thing, going through what had been worked up into these 9 coaching standards, giving their feedback and their suggestions. So that's a bit of an overview of a very intense, very engaged process.
A large process, but this is something I would not even try to summarize, but I will give my own reflections. Number one, I'm glad it's now down to 9. Imagine if we were now going to do a 30-minute coaching session and we are supposed to show 15 masteries. We'll be dead. I'm glad it's down to 9. Right? So that's number one. Number two, well, I realize it's almost 20 years. I think we should have a 20-year celebration of the masteries next year. Right, by January 2025, it is 20 years. The words that are being used, I think there is a lot of thought put into it. I mean, why choose the word mastery? Because to me, well, my view is that it's easy to understand the words, what they mean, what we are supposed to do, but it may take a lifetime to master it. And as we are talking about, the trust, the silence, the relationships, and so on, the word silence, I'm reflecting on my own. I'm good in having that silence for my clients, my coachees. If they're thinking, if they're pondering, I'm good to give them that space and silence for them. But upon reflection and also based on the feedback from other peers, I tend to ask the next coaching question a little bit too quickly the moment my coachees finish whatever they're saying. Sometimes it may be good to have an intentional pause after what they say before I ask the next question. Right, just a little thing to think about that silence part and just some of the reflections I got based on all these information. So, what did you learn or find interesting about how the coaching masteries were created? Is there 2 or 3 masteries that you'd like to highlight?
There are a few things I'd like to highlight. But I'd like to go back to a couple of things too that you just mentioned, CJ. You talked about sort of the longevity of the coaching masteries. And there's a lot of reason, I think, that they have had the longevity that they speak to us as well today as they did back then. And one of the things that just stood out that I found really interesting about some of the thinking behind them, some of the intention, is they really wanted them to be respectful and humanitarian. And as one of the coaches I interviewed said, and I'm going to read this to get it correct, they wanted the masteries and their wording to encapsulate the human experience. The human experience changes day by day, but fundamentally, the human experience is pretty predictable, such as what is important to a human and the way you want to treat other humans. And to me, that spoke to my heart. And I think it really is in the heart of the coaching masteries, because they are about getting, a little bit out of the head and being more holistic for the whole person with a true humanitarian approach about being human. I feel they help us in the busyness of our lives. A coaching session with the coaching masteries creates an environment for a client and coached and they create it together, but to be more their authentic self. And I think that's an amazing gift, these days that really allows for all kinds of beneficial possibilities and enhanced potential for the client. So that was one of the things that really struck me.
I just want to interject one thing. I mean, we talk about customer centricity today. And 20 years ago, these coaches thought about not how to be a better coach, but how to be a humanitarian, how to provide a great coaching experience from the coachee's perspective. That's really, really prescient and advanced 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think they were cutting edge in a number of ways like that. So another one of the things that struck me that I thought might be of interest to people, and this came from phase 3 when the certifiers were working on the coaching and they were calling them the Coaching Masteries or the IAC Coaching Masteries at that point. It was for mastery number 2. And at that point, mastery number 2 was perceiving and affirming the client's potential. But we know there's something more that was added. So the certifiers recommended adding expand. So perceiving, affirming, and expanding the client's potential. Because they felt that coaches understand that so much of what coaching is about helping the client acknowledge what is in order to see beyond to what can be. But helping a client see who they are and who they are becoming or have the potential to become if they so wish. So the focus with Mastery 2 is not only on what the client does, but who the client is and their potential to be. And so that with adding expand, added a whole other dimension to mastery number 2, to expand the client's self-awareness, their knowledge, and their abilities. And that way they would have more possibilities and resources to draw upon as they go forward. Not only for that particular topic of that session, but for all situations going forward in their life. So that was another one I think that they were.
And you know what, Catherine, I just have to interject here. Yeah. I mean, again, for Mastery 2, it's my personal habit to just look into perceiving and affirming the client's potential. I tend to miss out expand as well. And this is so great. It's what you just mentioned. It's not just about affirming them as into what they are good at, but also let them see who they are and what they could be, which leads on to later masteries on inviting potential or possibilities.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can see how all the masteries do interrelate and support each other. Just they come in from their own unique angle. Yeah. There was another one of the masteries, mastery number 3, engaged listening. And I thought what some of the coaches shared with me about their thinking on that one was that active listening at that time in the early 2000s was really becoming prominent in psychology and parenting. And active listening is really important. There's a lot to it because it demonstrates that you understand what the client has said and what they're trying to tell you. And it includes reflecting back so that they can better hear themselves and clarify what they're thinking. And it gives the client a chance to modify or fine tune what they're thinking. But engaged listening, they felt was really important to put in there to go beyond active listening, because active listening was really, in their view, only a component of engaged listening. And engaged listening, again, went from the more cognitive aspect to the more holistic aspect of the relationship, where the coach is really tuned in. For all of us, we can feel the difference even in ourselves, I think, when we're really engaged or when we're thinking just more active listening type approach. When we're really tuned in and we're aware of the breath or the pace or the tone or the energy of the client, or if there's hesitation or silence. Now that's where the coach is fully engaged. They're not analyzing, they're not thinking about their next question. They are present. So this sort of moves in, segues into Mastery 4. They're being fully present, which really helps their client become more fully present. So,
Catherine, we are in the middle of the global trials right now, and for all members who are tuning in right now, if you had signed up for the global trials, we still have 3 more weeks, and the reason we have an observer. If you have an observer, that's great. If you don't, put it in the global trials WhatsApp group, and we'll try to match you with one. If you have an observer, back to engaged listening. Observers let the coach know what's the coach being engaged during the coaching process. It's part of the feedback. I mean, we had Catherine explaining how is it different? Is the coach really engaged and part of that conversation? Right, Catherine, please continue.
That some of these, there are so many layers to each of the coaching masteries. That's why I like to go back and revisit them, and I sort of like comprehend a little bit more, and then like feedback, like when you're in a triad, or even reflecting on a coaching session you've just done, and to be able to appreciate, what the depth that's possible with each coaching mastery. There's so much to them, and now I hope I'm able to start conveying to everyone here there's how much went into the creating of them, which is why there's so much in each of them. Now, and I think a lot of their focus too, by going for that further depth, making it possible through these skills, was to allow coaching conversation to be more transformative, not just pursuing and attaining goals, but to truly be a transformative, growthful experience, which is, I think, why they have the longevity and the solidness that they still have today as well. You had asked, I think at one point when we were talking before, about if there were any disagreements or any juicy bits,
Yes.
And there weren't none that came forth in any of the stories I heard from, but they did have passionate discussions. Lots and lots, weeks, months of passionate discussions about the wording, as I had mentioned earlier. Because some words would have a different meaning in different cultures or languages. So it led to a deeper consideration of what they were choosing in the wording and the polishing of the wording. So one example was, do they use transform or change? And at the end, the result was that transform, as we know, was chosen because it had a deeper meaning. It was more significant than change.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I fully get it. I mean, when we talk about change and we talk about transform, but even when we are just reading the words, our physiology feels different. And to your point about the whole coaching is not. I mean, we have the grow model, and there is goal in coaching that a lot of people are doing, but it's also about it's more about the transformation. because, for me personally, goals change. And goals change sometimes because we decided to transform into something else. And that's just part of our, in a way, evolution as a human being.
Yeah. That's a neat point. Yeah. And so I think that's reflective of some of that deeper thought and that went into choosing the wording as they are today. Yeah.
It also let me kind of think that I should go and analyze every single word in the masteries, and then every word has been discussed, analyzed, debated, even to really pinpoint at that particular word. There are reasons behind it. And maybe we can spend more time to really understand or really holistically view those words, and we probably can gain further insights about how coaching could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's something I could share a little bit more that was documented at the time when the masteries were being published for the first time, and they were acknowledging. Actually, I have it in a slide, I think, too, so I can show that for everyone to see as well as when I talk to it. Yeah, this is it. So I'll give you a little bit of silence to soak it up and read it to yourselves for a moment. Because it really
Produce, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it really emphasizes what we're talking about in how important it was, the wording and the thought behind what they were doing. So I think these are really important concepts to appreciate. I found it very helpful anyways to understand where they were coming from and their intention in creating the coaching masteries. Also, which makes them so
I see the slide as a more scientific way. Oops,
sorry,
Catherine, am I losing you?
Yeah, I didn't quite hear what you said.
Oh, sorry. From the slide that you showed, it seems like it's a more scientific and a more elegant way of saying good coaching is good coaching, regardless of styles, methodologies, or wherever you learn your coaching from. Good coaching is good. Good coaching, great coaching is great coaching.
I think we got a little bit of background.
Yeah, I think we are listening to some Spanish interpretation.
Oh, yeah, we're just getting the channel. Yeah. So, I see you said a scientific and an elegant way. So yeah,
I'm saying good coaching is good coaching regardless.
Yeah. And there's an art to it as well, the science and the art of the good coaching and of their whole process of creating the coaching masteries. I agree. So, actually that brings me maybe to share something that's in my heart about this that comes out of this whole coaching research or research on the coaching masteries. Because definitely my understanding and awareness of the depth and breadth and versatility of the coaching masteries and the values they embody has really grown and deepened in me. And I've been struck by certain attributes, that I've witnessed. I witnessed in listening to the coaches that I interviewed and in what I've learned about the process of creating the coaching masteries. And those are specifically the spirit of humanity that I've referred to, the collaborative approach, how they explored with an open mind at first, and then through synergy and coherence, the coaching masteries emerged. And to me, their process of creating the coaching masteries reflects what the coaching masteries are about. You know, and the coaching masteries reflect the process that created them. You know, I think that's, you know, there's a coherence and integrity there that is really, really solid. So I started to think about that a little further too. And I see something else, that these same qualities are what I see IAC is about. It's all about. As a volunteer-run, not-for-profit coaching association, those same qualities, the spirit, the humanity, the synergy, emergence, and coherence, those qualities that built the coaching masteries and are in them, I see them in all our IAC volunteers who make everything happen in IAC for its members today and have throughout the past 21 years. And I think that's just, to me, it's just a beautiful thing. It just sort of brings it all around to
Wow.
the heart of the coaching masteries, which represent so much about what IAC is about and what draws, I think, all of us to IAC and the coaching masteries.
Wow. Well, wow. Yeah, indeed. This is IAC. It's really, really about passion for coaching. As in everyone who works somehow in the IAC universe is a volunteer in one way or the other. So, yeah, fantastic. I think we still have a little bit of time for Q&A. So I don't know how we are going to do this. We can have questions if you want to type. If for the rest of us, if you want to type, you can type in the chat box. If you want to raise questions, if you want to raise your hand, I see what I can do to facilitate questions.
And CJ, we can just keep
Yes.
5 minutes at the to roll the credits.
Yes.
So, great, thanks.
Yes, I know.
Thanks.
Anyone with questions?
There's been a lot of information, I know. I was trying to build in a little bit of silence for people to absorb and think.
And while we are waiting for questions, hopefully, I don't know if there's any question at all. Again, just to share a story, I posted it on my own LinkedIn post about when we learn coaching, we don't just learn to be coaches. I think a few nights ago, I had a very brief conversation with our president, Gillian. And what Gillian was saying that sometimes being involved with IAC, being involved in coaching makes you a better human being. And my experience is that in my daily conversations, if I am able to infuse more coaching techniques, I might be a better communicator. So what happened was I got a friend who owns a retail shop and was asking me, what are some strategies she can use for her Double 11, which is today? It's a shopping festival in China. It's huge. So all retailers are doing all kinds of promotions on Double 11. And she's asking me a few weeks ago, what should I do? And I have no idea what she should do for retail. I have no idea about retail, and it's retail in some parts of China, which I have no idea at all. And instead of trying to give an answer, I asked a question. I asked her, what have you in mind? And she said, oh, well, for X amount of price, customers will get A, B, and C. And then I asked, okay, so you have something in mind. So what was the real issue here? And she said, I don't know if I have the right manpower or the right help to execute what I have in mind. And that conversation was just 5 to 7 minutes. And in 5 to 7 minutes, we had a deeper conversation just by using simple coaching techniques. And it's back to all the masteries and what we have been discussing all around. Sometimes it's about us being better coaches. Sometimes we're in here to be better human beings, so better communicators. Right. Oh, someone said, would you mind repeating the 5 clusters of themes?
How they were back then. I'll go back to my notes here.
I think I can put it in the chat box for easy reference.
Yeah, that'd be
Here you
great.
go. the five themes. So there's
Here they are.
relationship,
Yeah, I got them.
listening,
Yeah,
and
here we got them.
communication.
Okay. Yeah, relationship, listening, and communication. Oh, you got them, CJ? Excellent.
Yeah, I got them.
But I can
Right.
read them if you're posting them. So relationship, listening and communication, processing information, coaching intentions, purpose, and perspectives, structures, and support. So it's
Right.
interesting with those 5 to see how then they emerged into the 9, separating out some of those concepts a little bit more.
Yeah. We have a question in Spanish, which we're lucky today that we have instant translators. So in English, it would have been, what advice would you give to people who are starting to practice the coaching masteries, to internalize them beyond the theory and get involved in the sessions?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important point, to get beyond the theory. We need to have that cognitive understanding, which is what the step 1 written exam, the online test is about. But then about getting, embodying them, getting to really know them and experience them. I think the coaching masters are very experiential. And so with that, I can only speak from my perspective. Everybody has different learning styles. But I know for me, when I was especially when I was studying to go through for the certification, it was almost painful. It almost made me feel sick to my stomach. But I would record sessions and I would listen to them and but try to be as objective as possible to reflect and to go, okay, so I was actually using that coaching mastery here, and this was the effect. So a little bit of reflection. Another example, because I was in triads and taking some courses where we were doing live coaching sessions, was listening to others. And you go, wow, what a brilliant, question or way of relating to the client at that point. So examples of others, I think, is to me what really helps me embody, a lot of the essence. It's about getting into the intention, I guess, of each mastery. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the thing about really getting into the masteries beyond the theory is to really practice in front of a masterful coach. So I remember my first practice session in China. It's on Zoom, but with our Chinese chapters. And I did so badly that I had a total dress down by Maria, one of the earliest coaching schools based out of Suzhou in China. And although, well, I embarrassed myself in front of everybody in the room, but it really, really struck me. It really nailed me into how I can improve a lot better. And of course, if you don't have anyone to partner with you, recording, I mean, it's just like public speaking. We thought sometimes I thought I did well in a public speech until I looked at my own recording and I found out, oops, that was horrible. So yes, there's some ways to really look into how we can improve.
I
One
think
other
there's something
question.
about that, CJ. I want to just add to what you're saying, if I could. There's that, because I think it's a value in the coaching masteries. So we bring our own humility or
Yeah.
humbleness or something, our own vulnerability or something into the coaching masteries. And that is also happening as your example of when we feel like we've failed, famously, sort of, so to speak. It's a painful thing, but it is such a great learning opportunity. It's like, all right, yeah, okay, I just didn't come across, or I didn't do this the way I intended, and that's where a lot of that deeper learning starts to register,
Right.
I think.
We got time for one last question and one comment. The comment, Spanish, I have translated and typed back into the chat
Wow.
box about being a coach is a way of life that is assumed with all its masteries. There is another comment. I'll go with the English question first, was up front. So, what were the thought processes of coming up with the distinctions in the masteries? How do we grade them? How do we know we have met the requirement? What was the thought process?
So I don't know specifically about the distinctions. They are one of many categories on that one-page grid for each coaching mastery. I think how those distinctions, measures, effective behaviors, definition, all of that came from the original 170 qualities and terms of that they started off with brainstorming of what would make what in their experience made for a masterful coaching session for the benefit of the client. And so that was the distinctions, was yet another way of providing another angle of understanding that particular mastery. It just as the measures were the outcome for the clients. It's often an emphasis in the measures. So yeah, I think that's about all I have right now about the distinctions. If that helps to answer the question.
Rafael from Chile, in Spanish, but I'll translate in English. Hello from Chile. Then we can say that more than a client, it is a human being. In the end, it is the connection of a being with another being. Wow.
Love that.
So I'm going to let you roll the credits while we talk about sort of things. So these, just in case some of us are curious, who were the first 17? Who were the expanded 32 coaches? So here they are. And by the
Yeah.
way, they're now on IAC website as well.
Yes, they are. So I'd like to take a few minutes just to sort of roll these credits for these here, before anonymous authors, co-creators of the coaching masteries who built these pillars for our coaching practices and the IAC and coaching and clients around the world. So you may recognize as I go through, this is phase one. This was the major development phase, and they ran primarily from January to July of 2005. You may recognize some of these names depending on how long you've been a member around IAC, because a number of them were certifiers, lead certifiers, and IAC presidents. Not during this time, but also into other years of the IAC. They continued, the majority of these coaches in phase one, they continued to interact with the second phase and the third phase. So the second phase, this list of individuals again from all points around the globe, they took the 9 coaching masteries on those grid sheets and continued to, with fresh eyes. They hadn't seen the development of it. So they took, they were normally given, I think, they were divided into 3 teams, given several of the coaching masteries to work on. And again, review them. Did they make sense? Did they, were they coherent? Did they relate to different cultures and languages? Could the wording be a little bit different? Was there something maybe missing? Or could there be a fuller explanation? So phase 2 did that work and went back and forth with the members in phase 1 who continued to be involved to carry on those dialogues. And then phase 3, which was, again, for a good 7 months or so, was when the certifiers actually, at that time, did a really intensive review. And that's like one of the suggestions that came from them was expand the client's potential. There was one more phase. It was a little later. Oops, sorry, wrong direction. Another group of coaches, some of them were certifiers, some of them weren't. They also worked on developing a little bit more, working with a bit more of the information that was still sort of parked because it didn't really fit into the grid, but it was still really valuable. And that's when they came up with those forms about shows that the coach understands the coaching masteries and common mistakes. And those were developed during that time. And that's also when the first translations of the ebook started to happen. So to all of these coaches who before have been unknown sort of to us, and certainly their story and the history of how they developed the coaching masteries, I know I, for one, I feel inspired by them. I'm inspired by the heart and soul and passion that they brought into this project. I'm so grateful. I think I'm at a loss for words, and maybe we all are, for what they actually accomplished and gifted all of us. And not only us as members of the IAC, but all the people we interact with around the world. Yeah.
Wow. 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 And that's a great way to sum it up. So, 2 things. If you're still online, thank you. 2 things. The last thing will be a group photo. But before the group photo, here's what's installed tomorrow. Right. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how we teach coaching. I mean, it's one thing to learn about coaching. It's also another thing altogether to help others understand and live the coaching masteries. And there could be better ways to teach and transfer that knowledge. So tomorrow is about perspective from teaching and, you guessed it, transformation. That's tomorrow with our coaches. We have our former president, Dr. Shanmurthy. We have Max Wang. We have, well, so have we got? Oops. And a few others experts who will be, we've got 5 guests all together. Fernando Celis, Andres Freudenberg, and Gonzalo as well, who will be here to share with us how to teach and make that transformation in coaching. And with that, can we all have that group photo? If you can, please turn on your cameras and put on the nicest smiles. Please don't go yet. And who's going to help us take the photo?
Hi, CJ. Thank you. Let's
Thank
prepare
you.
a good smile for today's event. Let's take the first picture.
I think there are 3 pages.
First page is done. Let's go to the second page. Just a minute. There are some cameras. Close. Okay. Just a second. Okay, a deep smile. Okay, let's go to that's the last one. We already have only 2 by this time. Okay, we're done with the picture. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you. Thank you. And for the rest of us, see you tomorrow. Gracias.
The International Association of Coaching. Home of the Coaching Masteries.